I've been a private investigator for 15 years. Mostly routine stuff. Insurance fraud, cheating spouses, corporate espionage. The cases that keep the lights on, but don't keep you up at night. That changed when Margaret Thorne walked into my office 3 days after Christmas, clutching a crumpled Macy's shopping bag like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to reality. My name is August Reed. I operate out of a small office in Providence, Rhode Island, and I'm about to tell you about a case that made me seriously consider burning my PI license and opening a coffee shop somewhere quiet, somewhere far from the East Coast, somewhere where children don't disappear. Mrs. Thorne was a composed woman, early 40s, with the kind of rigid posture that speaks of old money and private schools. But her hands shook as she placed 2 school photos on my desk. Kiernan and Bryn Thorne, identical twins, 7 years old, both had striking auburn hair and those peculiar pale green eyes you see sometimes in Irish families. They vanished at the Providence Place Mall, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. December 22nd, between 2:17 and 2:24 p.m. 7 minutes. I only looked away for 7 minutes. I'd seen the news coverage, of course. Twin children disappearing during Christmas shopping. It was the kind of story that dominated local headlines. The police had conducted an extensive search, but so far had turned up nothing. Mall security footage showed the twins entering the toy store with their mother, but never leaving. It was as if they'd simply evaporated. Mrs. Thorne? I began carefully. I understand the police are actively investigating. They're looking in the wrong places. She cut me off. They're treating this like an isolated incident. It's not. She reached into her bag and pulled out a manila folder, spreading its contents across my desk. Newspaper clippings, printouts from news websites, handwritten notes. 1994, twin boys, age 7, disappeared from a shopping center in Baltimore. 2001, twin girls, age 7, vanished from a department store in Burlington, Vermont. 2008, another set of twins, boys, age 7, last seen at a strip mall in Augusta, Maine. Her fingers tapped at each article. 2015, twin girls. All twins? I interrupted, leaning forward. All age 7? She nodded, her lips pressed into a thin line. Always during the Christmas shopping season. Always in the northeastern United States. Always 7-year-old twins. The police say I'm seeing patterns where there aren't any, that I'm a grieving mother grasping at straws. I studied the articles more closely. The similarities were unsettling. Each case remained unsolved. No bodies ever found, no ransom demands, no credible leads. Just children vanishing into thin air while their parents' backs were turned. I took the case. That was 6 months ago. Since then, I've driven thousands of miles, interviewed dozens of families, and filled 3 notebooks with observation and theories. I've also started sleeping with my lights on, double-checking my locks, and jumping at shadows. Because what I have found, what I'm still finding, it's worse than anything you can imagine. The pattern goes back further than Mrs. Thorne knew. Much further. I have traced similar disappearances back to 1952, though the early cases are harder to verify. Always twins. Always 7 years old. Always during the Christmas shopping season. But that's just the surface pattern, the obvious one. There are other connections, subtle details that make my skin crawl when I think about them too long. In each case, security cameras malfunction at crucial moments. Not obviously, no sudden static or blank screens. The footage just becomes subtly corrupted, faces blurred just enough to be useless, timestamps skipping microseconds at critical moments every single time. Then there are the witnesses. In each case, at least one person recalls seeing the children leaving the store or mall with their parent. But the descriptions of this parent never matches the actual parents. And yet, they're also never quite consistent enough to build a reliable profile. Tall, but not too tall. Average looking, I think. Wearing a dark coat. Or maybe it was blue? It's like trying to describe someone you saw in a dream. But the detail that keeps me up at night? In every single case, in the weeks leading up to the disappearance, someone reported seeing the twins playing with matchboxes. Not matchbox cars, actual matchboxes. Empty ones. Different witnesses, different locations, but always the same detail. Children sliding empty matchboxes back and forth between them like some kind of game. The Thorn twins were no exception. Their babysitter mentioned it to me in passing, something she'd noticed but hadn't thought important enough to tell the police. They'd sit for hours, she said, pushing these old matchboxes across the coffee table to each other. Never said a word while they did it. It was kind of creepy actually. I threw the matchboxes away a few days before it happened. I've driven past the Providence Place Mall countless times since taking this case. Sometimes late at night when the parking lot is almost empty, I park and watch the entrance where the Thorn twins were last seen. I've started noticing things. Small things, like how the security cameras seem to turn slightly when no one's watching, or how there's always at least one person walking through the lot who seems just a little too interested in the families going in and out. Last week, I followed one of these observers. They led me on a winding route through Providence's east side, always staying just far enough ahead that I couldn't get a clear look at them. Finally, they turned down a dead-end alley. When I reached the alley, they were gone. But there, in the middle of the pavement, was a single empty matchbox. I picked it up. Inside was a small piece of paper with an address in Portland, Maine. I've been sitting in my office for 3 days, staring at that matchbox, trying to decide what to do. The rational part of my brain says to turn everything over to the FBI. Let them connect the dots. Let them figure out why someone or something has been collecting 7-year-old twins for over 70 years. But I know I won't. Because yesterday, I received an email from a woman in Hartford. Her 7-year-old twins have started playing with matchboxes. Christmas is 5 months away. I'm writing this down because I need someone to know what I found, in case something happens. I'm heading to Portland tomorrow. The address leads to an abandoned department store, according to Google Maps. I've arranged for this document to be automatically sent to several news outlets if I don't check in within 48 hours. If you're reading this, it either means I'm dead, or I have found something so troubling that I've decided the world needs to know. Either way, if you have twins, or know someone who does, pay attention. Watch for the matchboxes. Don't let them play with matchboxes. And whatever you do, don't let them out of your sight during Christmas shopping. Update. Day 1. I'm in Portland now, parked across the street from the abandoned department store. It's one of those grand old buildings from the early 1900s, all ornate stonework and huge display windows, now covered with plywood. Holbrook & Sons according to the faded lettering above the entrance. Something about it seems familiar, though I know I've never been here before. The weird thing, when I looked up the building's history, I found that it had closed in 1952, the same year the twin disappearances started. The final day of business, December 24th. I've been watching for 3 hours now. Twice I've seen someone enter through a side door. Different people each time, but they move the same way. Purposeful, like they belong there, like they're going to work. My phone keeps glitching. The screen flickers whenever I try to take photos of the building. The last 3 shots came out completely black, even though it's broad daylight. The one before that, I had to delete it. It showed something standing in one of the windows. Something tall and thin that couldn't possibly have been there because all the windows are boarded up. I found another matchbox on my hood when I came back from getting coffee. Inside was a key and another note. Loading dock. Midnight. Bring proof. Proof of what? The sun is setting now. I've got 6 hours to decide if I'm really going to use that key. 6 hours to decide if finding these children is worth risking becoming another disappearance statistic myself. 6 hours to wonder what kind of proof they're expecting me to bring. I keep thinking about something Mrs. Thorne said during one of our later conversations. She'd been looking through old family photos and noticed something odd. In pictures from the months before the twins disappeared, there were subtle changes in their appearance. Their eyes looked different, darker somehow, more hollow. And in the last photo, taken just 2 days before they vanished, they weren't looking at the camera. Both were staring at something off to the side, something outside the frame, and their expressions. Mrs. Thorne couldn't finish describing those expressions. She just closed the photo album and asked me to leave. I found the photo later, buried in the police evidence files. I wish I hadn't. I've seen a lot of frightened children in my line of work, but I've never seen children look afraid like that. It wasn't fear of something immediate, like a threat or a monster. It was the kind of fear that comes from knowing something terrible, something they couldn't tell anyone. The same expressions I've now found in photographs of other twins taken days before they disappeared. Always the same hollow eyes, always looking at something outside the frame. I've got the key in my hand now. It's old, made of brass, heavy, the kind of key that opens serious locks, the kind of key that opens doors you maybe shouldn't open. But those children, 36 sets of twins over 70 years, 72 children who never got to grow up, 72 families destroyed by Christmas shopping trips that ended in empty car seats and unopened presents. The sun's almost gone now. The street lights are coming on, but they seem dimmer than they should be. Or maybe that's just my imagination. Maybe everything about this case has been my imagination. Maybe I'll use that key at midnight and find nothing but an empty building full of dust and old memories. But I don't think so, because I just looked at the last photo I managed to take before my phone started glitching. It's mostly black, but there's something in the darkness. A face. No, 2 faces pressed against one of those boarded up windows. They have pale green eyes. Update. Day 1, 11:45 p.m. I'm sitting in my car near the loading dock. Every instinct I have is screaming at me to drive away, fast. But I can't, not when I'm this close. Something's happening at the building. Cars have been arriving for the past hour, expensive ones with tinted windows. They park in different locations around the block, never too close to each other. People get out, men and women in dark clothes, and disappear into various entrances, like they're arriving for some kind of event. The loading dock is around the back, accessed through an alley. No street lights back there, just darkness and the distant sound of the ocean. I've got my flashlight, my gun, for all the good it would do, and the key. And questions, so many questions. Why here? Why twins? Why age 7? What's the significance of Christmas shopping? And why leave me a key? The last question bothers me the most. They want me here. This isn't a break in the case. It's an invitation. But why? 11:55 p.m. now. Almost time. I'm going to leave my phone in the car, hidden, recording everything. If something happens to me, maybe it'll help explain. Wait. There's someone standing at the end of the alley. Just standing there, watching my car. They're too far away to see clearly, but something about their proportions isn't quite right. Too tall, too thin. They're holding something. It looks like a matchbox. Midnight. Time to go. There was no key, no meeting. I couldn't bring myself to approach that loading dock, because at 11:57 p.m., I saw something that made me realize I was never meant to enter that building. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The figure at the end of the alley, the tall, thin one, started walking toward my car. Not the normal kind of walking. Each step was too long, too fluid, like someone had filmed the person walking and removed every other frame. As it got closer, I realized what had bothered me about its proportions. Its arms hung down past its knees, way past its knees. I sat there, paralyzed as it approached my driver's side window. The street light behind it made it impossible to see its face, but I could smell something. Sweet, but wrong, like fruit that's just started to rot. It pressed something against my window. A matchbox. Inside the matchbox was a Polaroid photograph. I didn't call the police. I couldn't, because the photo was of me, asleep in my bed, taken last night. In the background, standing in my bedroom doorway, were Kiernan and Bryn Thorne. I drove. I don't remember deciding to drive, but I drove all night, taking random turns, going nowhere, just trying to get away from that thing with the long arms, from that photograph, from the implications of what it meant. The sun's coming up now. I'm parked at a rest stop somewhere in Massachusetts. I've been going through my notes, looking for something I missed, some detail that might explain what's really happening. I found something. Remember those witness accounts I mentioned? The ones about seeing the twins leave with their parent? I've been mapping them, every single sighting, every location where someone reported seeing missing twins with an unidentifiable adult. They form a pattern, plot them on a map, and they make a shape, a perfect spiral, starting in Providence and growing outward across New England, each incident exactly 27.3 miles from the last. And if you would follow the spiral inward, past Providence, to where it would logically begin, that department store in Portland. But here's what's really keeping me awake. If you follow the spiral outward, predicting where the next incident should be. Hartford, where those twins just started playing with matchboxes. I need to make some calls. The families of the missing twins, not just the recent ones, but all of them, every single case going back to 1952. Because I have a horrible suspicion. Update. Day 2, 5:22 p.m. I've spent all day on the phone. What I found, I don't want it to be true. Every single family of missing twins, 3 months after their children disappeared, they received a matchbox in the mail. No return address, no note, just an empty matchbox. Except they weren't empty. If you hold them up to the light just right, if you shake them in just the right way, you can hear something inside. Something that sounds like children whispering. Mrs. Thorne should receive her matchbox in exactly 1 week. I called her, warned her not to open it when it arrives. She asked me why. I couldn't tell her what the other parents told me about what happened when they opened their matchboxes, about the dreams that started afterward. Dreams of their children playing in an endless department store, always just around the corner, always just out of sight. Dreams of long-armed figures arranging and rearranging toys on shelves that stretch up into darkness. Dreams of their children trying to tell them something important. Something about the matchboxes. Something about why they had to play with them. Something about what's coming to Hartford. I think I finally understand why twins, why 7-year-olds, why Christmas shopping. It's about innocence, about pairs, about symmetry, and about breaking all three. I've booked a hotel room in Hartford. I need to find those twins before they disappear, before they become part of this pattern that's been spiraling outward for 70 years. But first, I need to stop at my apartment, get some clean clothes, get my good camera, get my case files. I know that thing with the long arms might be waiting for me. I know the Thorne twins might be standing in my doorway again. I'm going anyway, because I just realized something else about that spiral pattern, about the distance between incidents, 27.3 miles. The exact distance light travels in the brief moment between identical twins being born. The exact distance sound travels in the time it takes to strike a match. Update. Day 2, 8:45 p.m. I'm in my apartment. Everything looks normal. Nothing's been disturbed. Except, there's a toy department store catalog from 1952 on my kitchen table. I know it wasn't there this morning. It's open to the Christmas section. Every child in every photo is a twin, and they're all looking at something outside the frame, all holding matchboxes, all trying to warn us. Update. Day 2, 11:17 p.m. The catalog won't let me put it down. I don't mean that metaphorically. Every time I try to set it aside, my fingers won't release it. Like it needs to be read. Like the pages need to be turned. It's called Holbrook & Sons Christmas Catalog 1952 Final Edition. The cover shows the department store as it must have looked in its heyday. Gleaming windows, bright lights, families streaming in and out. But something's wrong with the image. The longer I look at it, the more I notice that all the families entering the store have twins. All of them. And all the families leaving. They're missing their children. The Christmas section starts on page 27. Every photo shows twin children modeling toys, clothes, or playing with holiday gifts. Their faces are blank, emotionless, and in every single photo, there's something in the background. A shadow, a suggestion of something tall and thin, just barely visible at the edge of the frame. But it's the handwriting that's making my hands shake. Someone has written notes in the margins, different handwriting on each page, different pens, different decades, like people have been finding this catalog and adding to it for 70 years. They're trying to show us something. 1963, the matchboxes are doors. 1978, they only take twins because they need pairs. Everything has to have a pair. 1991, don't let them complete the spiral. 2004, Hartford is the last point. After Hartford, the circle closes. 2019, the most recent note was written just weeks ago. When you see yourself in the mirror, look at your reflection's hands. I just tried it. My reflection's hands were holding a matchbox. I'm driving to Hartford now. I can't wait until morning. Those twins, the ones who just started playing with matchboxes, the Blackwood twins, Emma and Ethan, they live in the West End. Their mother posted about them on a local Facebook group, worried about their new obsession with matchboxes, asking if any other parents had noticed similar behavior. The catalog is on my passenger seat. It keeps falling open to page 52. There's a photo there I've been avoiding looking at directly. It shows the toy department at Holbrook & Sons. Rows and rows of shelves stretching back into impossible darkness, and standing between those shelves, I finally made myself look at it properly. Really look at it. Those aren't mannequins arranging the toys. Update. Day 3, 1:33 a.m. I'm parked outside the Blackwood house. All the lights are off except one. 3rd floor, corner window. I can see the shadows moving against the curtains. Small shadows. Child-sized shadows. They're awake, playing with matchboxes probably. I should go knock on the door, wake the parents, warn them. But I can't stop staring at that window, because every few minutes, there's another shadow, a much taller shadow, and its arms. The catalog is open again, page 73 now. It's an order form for something called a twins special holiday package. The description is blank except for one line. Every pair needs a keeper. The handwritten notes on this page are different. They're all the same message, written over and over in different hands. Don't let them take the children to the mirror department. Don't let them take the children to the mirror department. Don't let them take the children to the mirror department. The last one is written in fresh ink, still wet. My phone just buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Check the catalog index for mirror department special services. I know I shouldn't. I'm going to anyway. Update. Day 3, 1:47 a.m. The index led me to page 127, the mirror department. The photos on this page, they're not from 1952. They can't be, because one of them shows the Thorne twins standing in front of the massive mirror in what looks like an old department store. But their reflection shows them at different ages, dozens of versions of them stretching back into the mirror's depth, all holding matchboxes, all 7 years old. And behind each version, getting closer and closer to the foreground, one of those long-armed figures. There's movement in the Blackwood house. Adult shapes passing by lit windows. The parents are awake, but the children's shadows in the third-floor window aren't moving anymore. They're just standing there, both holding something up to the window. I don't need my binoculars to know what they're holding. The catalog just fell open to the last page. There's only one sentence, printed in modern ink. The spiral ends where the mirrors begin. I can see someone walking up the street toward the house. They're carrying a mirror. Update. Day 3, 2:15 a.m. I did something unforgivable. I let them take the Blackwood twins. I sat in my car and watched as that thing with the long arms set up its mirror on their front lawn. Watched as the twins came downstairs and walked out their front doors, matchboxes in hand. Watched as their parents slept through it all, unaware their children were walking into something ancient and hungry. But I had to, because I finally remembered what happened to my brother. What really happened that day at the mall. And I understood why I became a private investigator. The catalog is writing itself now, new pages appearing as I watch, filled with photos I took during this investigation. Only, I never took these photos. In them, I'm the one being watched. In every crime scene photo, every surveillance shot, there's a reflection of me in a window or a puddle. And in each reflection, I'm standing next to a small boy. My twin brother. Still 7 years old. Still holding his matchbox. Update. Day 3, 3:33 a.m. I'm parked outside Holbrook & Sons again. The Blackwood twins are in there. I can feel them, just like I can feel all the others. They're waiting. The truth was in front of me the whole time. In every reflection, every window, every mirror I've passed in the 15 years I've been investigating missing children. We all have reflections. But reflections aren't supposed to remember. They're not supposed to want. In 1952, something changed in the mirror department at Holbrook & Sons. Something went wrong with the symmetry of things. Reflections began to hunger. They needed pairs to be complete. Perfect pairs. Twins. But only at age 7. Only when the original and the reflection are still similar enough to switch places. The long-armed things? They're not kidnappers. They're what happens to reflections that stay in mirrors too long. They stretch themselves, trying to reach through the glass. That hunger for the warmth of the real. I know because I've been helping them. For 15 years, I've been investigating missing twins, following the spiral pattern, documenting everything. Only, it wasn't me doing the investigating. It was my reflection. Update. Day 3, 4:44 a.m. I'm at the loading dock now. The door is open. Inside, I can hear children playing, laughing, the sound of matchboxes sliding across glass. The catalog's final page shows a photo taken today. In it, I'm standing in front of a department store mirror. But my reflection isn't mimicking my movements. It's smiling. Standing next to it is my brother, still 7 years old, still wearing the clothes he disappeared in. He's holding out a matchbox to me. And now I remember everything. The day my mother disappeared, we weren't just shopping. We were playing a game with matchboxes, sliding them back and forth to each other in front of the mirrors in the department store. Each time we slit them, our reflections moved a little differently, became a little more real, until one of us stepped through the mirror. But here's the thing about mirrors and twins. When identical twins look at their reflection, how do they know which side of the mirror they're really on? I've spent 15 years investigating missing twins, 15 years trying to find my brother, 15 years helping gather more twins, more pairs, more reflections. Because the thing in the mirror department at Holbrook & Sons, it's not collecting twins. It's collecting originals, real children, real warmth, real life, to feed all the reflections that have been trapped in mirrors since 1952. To give them what they've always wanted, a chance to be real. The door to the mirror department is open now. Inside, I can see them all, Every twin that's disappeared since 1952, all still 7 years old, all still playing with their matchboxes, all waiting to trade places. Just like my brother and I did, just like I've been helping other twins do for 15 years. Because I'm not August Reed, the private investigator who lost his twin brother in 1992. I'm August Reed's reflection. And now that the spiral is complete, now that we have enough pairs, we can all step through, all of us, every reflection, every mirror image, every shadow that's ever hungered to be real. The matchbox in my hand is the same one my real self gave me in 1992. Inside, I can hear my brother whispering, "Your turn to be the reflection." Final update. Day 3, 5:55 AM. Some things can only be broken by their exact opposites. That's what my brother was trying to tell me through the matchbox all these years. Not your turn to be the reflection, but a warning. Don't let them take your turn at reflection. The matchboxes aren't tools for switching places. They're weapons, the only weapons that work against reflections. Because inside each one is a moment of perfect symmetry. The brief flare of a match creating identical light and shadow. The exact thing reflections can't replicate. I know this because I'm not really August Reed's reflection. I'm August Reed, the real one. The one who spent 15 years pretending to be fooled by his own reflection. Investigating disappearances while secretly learning the truth and getting closer and closer to the center of the spiral. My reflection thinks it's been manipulating me, leading me here to complete some grand design. It doesn't understand that every investigation, every documented case, every mile driven was bringing me closer to the one thing it fears. The moment when all the stolen children strike their matches at once. Update. Day 3, 6:27 AM. I'm in the mirror department now. Every reflection of every twin since 1952 is here, thinking they've won, thinking they're about to step through their mirrors and take our places. Behind them, in the darkened store beyond the glass, I can see the real children, all still 7 years old, because time moves differently in reflections, all holding their matchboxes, all waiting for the signal. My reflection is smiling at me, standing next to what it thinks is my brother. The spiral is complete. It says, time to make every reflection real. I smile back, and I light my match. The flash reflects off every mirror in the department, multiplies, amplifies. Every twin in every reflection strikes their match at the exact same moment, light bouncing from mirror to mirror, creating a perfect spiral of synchronized flame. But something goes wrong. The light isn't perfect. The symmetry isn't perfect. The spiral wavers. I realize too late what's happened. Some of the children have been here too long, spent too many years as reflections. The mirrors have claimed them so completely that they can't break free, including my brother. Final entry. Day 3. Sunrise. It's over, but victory tastes like ashes. The mirrors are cracked. Their surfaces no longer perfect enough to hold reflections that think and want and hunger. The long-armed things are gone. The spiral is broken. But we couldn't save them all. Most of the children were far too gone. 7 decades of living as reflections had made them more mirror than human. When the symmetry broke, they faded, became like old photographs, growing dimmer and dimmer until they were just shadows on broken glass. Only the Thorn twins made it out. Only they were new enough, real enough to survive the breaking of the mirrors. They're aging now, quickly but safely, their bodies catching up to the years they lost. Soon, they'll be back with their mother, with only vague memories of a strange dream about matchboxes and mirrors. The others, we had to let them go. My brother included. He looked at me one last time before he faded, and I saw peace in his eyes. He knew what his sacrifice meant, knew that breaking the mirrors would save all the future twins who might have been taken. The building will be demolished tomorrow. The mirrors will be destroyed properly, safely. The matchboxes will be burned. But first, I have to tell 69 families that their children aren't coming home, that their twins are neither dead nor alive, but something in between, caught forever in that strange space between reality and reflection. Sometimes, in department stores, I catch glimpses of them in the mirrors. 7-year-olds playing with matchboxes, slowly fading like old Polaroids. Still together, still twins, still perfect pairs, even if they're only pairs of shadows now. This will be my last case as a private investigator. I've seen enough reflections for one lifetime, but every Christmas shopping season, I stand guard at malls and department stores, watching for long-armed figures, looking for children playing with matchboxes. Because the spiral may be broken, but mirrors have long memories, and somewhere in the spaces between reflection and reality, 70 years worth of 7-year-old twins are still playing their matchbox games, still waiting, still watching, just to make sure it never happens again.